The basilisk woke suddenly, but did not move or open its eyes. Twice now I have woken in a strange place. First in these small woods full of weak little trees, now here in this hidden city full of odd humans and their ridiculous buildings. And the caster, she was more than she appeared. Be careful. Pain lanced the ancient creature's left eye. I am injured. How dare she touch me with her filthy magic? Rage boiled in his blood. There shouldn't be casters for a league. I killed them all. He waited under the unfamiliar building's rubble and listened for the weaving of spells or the marching of an army. He heard the calls of frightened humans and a new sound, a strange shrieking coming from all sides. Some kind of new elvish casting? I did not taste elves in the air, though. Perhaps they hid themselves from me. It matters not. They will die. Slower than the humans, but they will all still die. He heard more unfamiliar sounds above the rubble, all over him. Then a familiar smell came through the dust and dirt. Fear. It was a smell he knew dearly. It made his mouth water. He smelled strange magic, too. Weak, untapped potential. An unfamiliar strand of arcane power in the blood of one of the gathering men. So many new smells since I came here. He took his time, searched for a hint of a curse or spell that might hinder his movement, but felt none. His hunger was growing. The few weak humans he'd devoured were insufficient to satiate him. There must be more, thousands more. Some twisted magic is at work to bring this city to my forest without my knowing. All might and fury he rose from the rubble, ready to feast and seek revenge. The basilisk's anger grew hotter as he realized the pain in his eye was not a minor injury, but that he could no longer use his right eye. As the rubble fell away, he heard loud banging and felt the runes in his bones draw on his magic as they protected him from the human's fire and metal. Fools! Do they not recognize me for what I am? They shall grovel before me. With his one good eye, he cast his gaze about his surroundings. Strange buildings, machines, and people were everywhere. All around him were foolish-looking humans dressed in blue, standing by strange, flashing metal machines, like the ones that failed to keep him from entering the city. There is an unusual variety of colors among these humans. Good. More flavors. Loud explosions echoed from the hands of the men and women around him. His anger was further kindled as he saw roughly half of these human attackers' eyes were guarded by strange, dark coverings. They attack me with useless weapons, but guard their eyes against my stare. What wizardry is this? His enormous forked tongue lashed out and tasted the air, tasted their fear. Good. There was fear closer than the flashing metal boxes. Shadowfang tilted his head and saw the two of them at the edge of the rubble. So much variety. The basilisk stared down at them. Shadowfang's gaze trapped the one with the bright white feet as he looked foolishly back into his eyes. Yes, no fear. Let it course through your veins. You will all know fear. Beneath him, a dark woman raised her strange weapon, training it on Shadowfang's glowing eye. He chuckled. 3 shots tore through the air towards him. Then, 3 inches before striking home in his reptilian eye, they turned. The bullets curved as if repelled by some invisible force. As his wards protected him, he saw the panic settle into her. Good. Fear me. Shadowfang struck with the force and speed of a bolt of lightning. His mouth enveloped her companion, cut him off at the ankles with a loud snap. and trapped a silent cry of fear caught in the man's throat forever between his fangs. He did not play with this one. There would be time for that in a moment. He swallowed, feeling the man's bones snap in his constricting throat. The might of the strike knocked her on her backside only a few feet away from the monster's bleeding eye. He was not worried, though. She was no threat to him, and nothing was left of her companion but his shoes. Blood struck the ground around the shoes. Purplish-red blood from Shadowfang's injured eye pooled with the deep red blood that dripped from the fangs, staining the once well-cleaned shoes red. Shadowfang swallowed loudly, let the sound of crunching bones stir up more terror in his prey. The macabre crackling was delicious to him, but revolting to his prey. He watched as the woman scrambled backward before turning over to push herself to her feet to run. She was moving toward one of the flashing, wailing black machines, with a similarly dressed man only a few dozen yards away. Shadowfang locked him in place with the gaze of his eye, so he could offer no help. "What are you doing? Start the car!" she screamed in a strange tongue at the top of her lungs. Shadowfang understood the words, though. Whatever magic altered them was trivial to him. Delight mixed with anger made the lingering taste of the man in his mouth sweeter. "Struggle all you want. There is no escape." Clearing the scraps left in his mouth, he swallowed again, loudly, reveling in what he knew would be an overwhelmingly unsettling sound coming from a creature of his magnitude. Then he lowered himself closer to the ground, let his forked purple tongue lash out to stroke the back of the woman's leg, making her stumble. He tasted her hope of escape leaving her as his barbed tongue tore at the flesh of her calf. Scales, ranging in size from a grown man's open hand to that of an arrowhead, scraped the concrete and drowned out the screams, sirens, and gunfire all around them. He struck, but the woman threw herself forward in a burst of desperation, barely saving herself from being swallowed whole like her companion. Still, his fangs plunged into flesh with a satisfying squelch. Shadowfang's rage exploded into pleasure as he realized his newest victim was lodged between his fangs by her attempt to dodge his attack. "Now for some fun," he thought. He decided to let her die in absolute terror for thinking she could escape him. He let the blood from her leg run over his tongue. This one tasted different from the one he'd swallowed whole. Wonderful how the slightest variations can change the flavor. Blood filled the basilisk's mouth as arm-sized fangs squeezed. By some freak accident, her leg was unbroken. He could tell. He'd broken enough of them before. The monster was extraordinarily aware of the warm liquid leaking from her leg. He could taste the pain in that delicious blood. Shadowfang absorbed her screams of pain greedily, reveling in the terror he struck in those around her. He made her world spin as he pulled back, making her fall forward with a thud. The snake grinned as she hit the ground. Then he slowly lifted her into the air. He was in no hurry. There were no threats to him here. He licked the leg in his jaws, his tongue peeling away skin and coaxing more screams from his prey. Bang! 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 Shadowfang heard her weapon make a series of loud noises. He chuckled from deep in his throat. What was she thinking? Did she not know it was far too late for her? He could feel her struggle, twist, and flail, trying to disconnect from her leg. She attacked her own leg. The fool! She must know how hopeless she is. These fools wear no armor and use weapons made for birds and rodents, not the likes of me. They will learn to fear me. I will show her. Shadowfang's tongue twitched at the thought of snapping his head back, flinging his helpless prey into the air filling with delicious screams before he swallowed her whole and crushed her bones in his throat. It was his favorite way to eat humans. The pathetic thing let out a measly squeak as the ground rose to meet her. From her place near the ground, Officer Akina's vision was growing dark. Wet, sticky concrete scraped against her head as Shadowfang lowered her, preparing to flick his head back and toss her into the air. He'd give her one last fleeting moment of hope before sending the rest of them a message. Then, a black boot stepped into Akina's failing line of sight. The officer struggled to look up. A black sword arced through the air above her and then out of sight. Shadowfang did not see the weapon strike, but a split second later he felt the loss of his prey's weight as the leg came loose in his mouth. The ruined leg tumbled across his tongue, no longer holding his prize captive. Puzzled, Shadowfang swallowed reflexively. Years of instinct told the basilisk something was wrong. So having already been injured once, the mighty creature yanked his head back and turned to see what happened to his snack. Beneath him, a huge man dressed all in black had grabbed his prey and hoisted her off the ground. But he was not alone. Standing between him and Shadowfang was another man wearing the same blacks, and he had a blade in his hand. The basilisk was irate. This infestation of humans had to be responsible for his being in this unfamiliar, strange land. Humans had always meddled in things beyond their understanding, ignoring the consequences their actions had on their surroundings. Shadowfang had felt strong magic within the city, enough to satiate his hunger for months. It made him cautious at first. But after 3 days of seeing no application of arcane skills from the woods, the caution died. The thought of terrorizing and conquering such helpless creatures had enthralled him, and he'd been unable to wait any longer. He had attacked the city after 3 days of watching it, and oh, his luck. A weak young caster waited for him at the edge of the city. He'd toyed with her, and to his surprise she'd outmaneuvered him. Not outsmarted him. She'd been small and had managed to hide the scope of her powers from him, but she'd killed herself to slow him down. Yes, she'd destroyed one of his eyes, but in time it would heal. Now, her master would come, and he would kill it as well. But it was still infuriating. Had she not killed herself, he'd have enjoyed eating her. But now she was gone, and with half his vision. To his shock, she'd been replaced by more helpless fools who saw fit to fling small metal rocks at him. Now there was a new surprise. This city was full of them, one after another, each more mouth-watering than the last. How dare they? He thought again. Shadowfang watched as the big man retreated with his prey, raising one of his strange weapons as he fled. The 4 thunderous cracks that came from it matched its size. Ting, 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 ting! Shadowfang blinked his enormous eye. I felt that. It broke through my wards. Of course, it was too weak to pierce my magnificent scales, though. These two are different from their panicked, flailing kin. These are warriors. He turned his attention to the man in front of him, curiosity piqued. Perhaps a challenge, then. He does not meet my eye, but watches me nonetheless. He is strange, but clearly not who I am hunting. The man took a hesitant step back, and the sword shifted, allowing Shadowfang to get a good look at it. A Thalmian blade? He hissed. The taste of fresh blood still lingered. Wizard or not, he wields a black Thalmian. It is not the one made for Awan. Did she have the blacksmith toil in secret to make another, or does this small warrior possess similar hidden knowledge? It matters not. I will know his name, so I might list him among my victories. Keeping his gaze on the sword-bearing man, he let the blond man carrying the wounded human away. I'll finish them later. They'll be all the tastier, brimming with despair over me killing their champion. His tongue lashed out, tasted the air, his nostrils taking in the smell of the man. There was magic about him, strange and unfamiliar magic. The sun beat down on Shadowfang and filled him with energy as he addressed the strange city's new defender. What have we here?